What is going on, Colts Nation? Welcome back to another Bring the Juice video. Guys, you see it by the end of the video title here. The Indianapolis Colts, after being down 23 to nothing against the Los Angeles Rams, came all the way back and had a chance to win it in overtime for the second straight week, but were just unable to bring it home. The Colts lose by a final score of 29-23. Glad to have with me Drake Wally, our guy from the Horseshoe Huddle. Drake, you are muted. Just letting you know that right off the top. But how you doing, man? How you feeling?
I'm feeling, I know that the Colts lost the game. I know that they had an absolutely horrendous start to the first half, but I mean, the fact that they fought back and took this game to overtime yet again for two straight weeks, they came up on the short end. But two things. First off, Puka Nakua looks like he might be actually a ridiculous talent in the NFL.
Yeah.
But two, the guile, the grit, and just the no give up attitude of the Indianapolis Colts team really made me happy. And at the end of the day, and I want to remind people of this, Derek, the Colts are in a no expectations NFL season. Okay, so like the team's expected to win 5, 6 games. If they go out there and win 8 or 9 or even 7, it's a good year. So I know people were really upset with how they started this game, but Richardson's so inexperienced. I mean, they're the third youngest team in the NFL by average age. I think they're like 25 on average age. So give them time. The fact that they almost came back and won this game, though, against a veteran quarterback like Matt Stafford, who can carve up any experienced NFL secondary, that gives you reason to be happy. So I think you should walk away, if you're a Colts fan, from this loss with high hopes for the team for the long term. Honestly,
Yeah, I mean, it is hard to sit here and say that after a loss like this. And it makes
fair.
it all the worse that not only did they almost did get blown out, which kind of a lot of people would say, no, that's not good at all. But then, to make all the way back and, still lose it is also really rough. But I think, Drake, me personally, I think this loss is so much better because when you get blown out like what they were in the first half, at that moment, you're just sitting there saying to yourself, okay, so we all suck. Like what happened here? That to me is less of, okay, so we came all the way back. We were just this close. Now let's dial into what we know. We can come back and compete with anyone and still be down by double digits and come back and win in style. Let's figure out where we messed up. Can we take the positive, but let's now focus on the negative. It gives the guys more of a direction, I think, rather than saying, "Oh, well, we all sucked, let's just chalk this one down on the loss column." Like that felt to me like a different attitude. But yeah, like you said, this team's so young. It's so different. Steichen, first year coaching. The team is almost completely new. So many young guys in different positions that it just doesn't matter, So it's we're gonna have to move on from that. But let's just go ahead and hop into it, man. We're gonna try to break all this down. So let's start with Anthony Richardson. I don't remember how he looked through the first half, but I think he finished 12, 5 of 12, 5 of 14 or something through the first half.
Sounds about right.
Yeah, something close to that. It was not good. Um, Clearly, I think it was a little bit of everything. Richardson was inaccurate. Yes, he missed some throws, and we all can agree and sit there and say that. But then also you look at it from the other perspective, the offensive line was not doing a great job all game of protecting Anthony Richardson. Blake Freeland was getting exposed every other down. Aaron Donald was a menace. It didn't matter who he was lined up on. It could have been Quentin Nelson. It could have been Blake Freeland. It could have been Will Fries. They were all having difficulty keeping Aaron Donald off of Anthony Richardson. And we'll talk about them here shortly. But what you saw in that second half, Drake, after a visibly frustrated Anthony Richardson. We've seen Richardson show his anger and frustration and like at himself multiple times already this year after he misses some throws. But in that first half, he was animated. He was mad at himself for how he was letting that go. And then in that second half, despite still only throwing for about 44% on his throws, you saw him in that late third and early fourth take over the game. I mean, he was everywhere. He was making every throw. He was running. He was making throws on the run. He was running the playbook by design. It was, and all while be it, he got stepped on by Braden Smith in that first half. I said at the end of the game, I don't care how this game ends. Anthony Richardson has that dog in him. He has something in him that you love to see as a Colts fan. And I'm just glad that in that second half, he showed what he's capable of doing.
Yeah, and the thing is, look, he's still, I believe he's 22 years old. That's such a young age for any NFL quarterback, first off. Second, he went 11 for 25, okay? He did cough up a fumble, but he accounted for 3 touchdowns still. He still accounted for 200 yards on 11 completions. You know what that tells me? That tells me that NFL defenses respect his mobility so much that even when he has 44% completion percentage, he can still average almost 20 yards of completion.
Yeah.
NFL defenses have no choice but to account for this guy. We saw it with the Texans. They had no clue what to do with Richardson. If he stays in that whole game, you might be talking about a rookie record for a single game performance. I mean, he had them on their heels in the first quarter. So this is a dude that is the size of Micah Parsons playing quarterback that actually understands the offense that is running around him. Now the thing is, I even posted this out on X, Derek. I said I was waiting for this game from Richardson. It's expected that he's going to have that game where it's the, hey, welcome to the NFL, pal, type of moment.
Yeah.
And when you're facing Aaron Donald, who we can both agree is going to be an NFL Hall of Famer when he retires, maybe even first ballot.
Oh, yeah, easy.
This is the best dude overall defensively as a singular player that the Colts will face probably this entire season. And he gets him in week 4. Good for Richardson that he gets this experience this early on. No expectation type of year. It's all about Anthony Richardson's development. It's all about Shane Steichen getting adjusted to being an NFL head coach. So far, all things are pointing up. This was a loss. He only threw 44%. But there were a couple plays where he should have been sacked. It should have been an incompletion, and he still figured out a way to get a big play out of the pocket. So there's reason to understand that Anthony Richardson played well. And even Zach Moss, who started off terribly, still ended with 70 yards rushing. So this team fought, dude. They fought so hard. They pushed themselves as hard as they could, down 23 points, and almost pulled it off with a very young roster. So there's big silver linings here, in my opinion.
I just look at it and, again, we said it before, Drake. It's you have to take it with everything with a grain of salt. This year is the trial run for Anthony Richardson. It's all about, do we see something in him that gives us hope that a few years down the line, when the accuracy gets a little bit better, he doesn't sail as many throws high and learns to get a little touch on his throws every once in a while. Does that become better? Does he know how to read a defense underneath? Right. And we saw so many plays, especially in that second half. In the first half, you saw that throw to Josh Downs. That thing was a thing of beauty. In the second half, that throw to Mo Alley Cox, where he gets his foot stepped on and still sidearms that thing right to Mo Alley Cox, falling
from
down.
His hip, man.
Looks like Patrick Mahomes out there. And then, of course, like you said, had another touchdown throw. He had that throw where Donald was bringing him down and still threw it 35 yards down the field to Alec Pierce, who goes up and gets it. And then you get the rushing touchdown on that drive. And again, we saw his 360 celebration spike that he does every time, which is hilarious. And then, it just was, you saw more plays that reminded you why you drafted this guy. There was a lot of bad to go with it, but there was a lot of good to also take away from it. And I think that's what's the most important thing is you're seeing Anthony Richardson, even amidst where everyone would have said the game's over, bro. You don't even need to worry about it anymore. Didn't give up and said, I am going to go out there and compete. And I will hate myself if I don't go out there and at least try. And sure enough, it was close enough.
Yeah, and the thing is, the fact that you're getting this from your rookie quarterback. So far, out of Will Levis, CJ, Anthony Richardson, and Bryce Young, it has been without question, okay? CJ Stroud and Anthony Richardson have emerged as the two best quarterbacks of this draft so far.
Yeah.
And CJ Stroud's going out there with a very unprepared offensive line and is delivering really efficient performances with his arm, whereas Richardson's doing it with his legs and opening up opportunities for his arm. So that's what he did in the second half. And the thing is, credit to Steichen, because when you're down 23-0, it's really difficult to get your troops invigorated. And here's the thing, Steichen had a fourth down call that really plagued him at the end of the day, because if he lets Matt Gay try to kick that field goal when they're down, I think it was 26-8.
It was 23-8, and then if they kicked that field goal, would have been 23-11, and then things might have been different. Things might have been different.
Oh, if they score that touchdown, they go up 3 points. I believe it was. So they would have been. It would have been 20. Okay, so 25.
It would have been up by 2, but at least then, like at the end of the game, at least you were with the lead, and especially with Stafford in that situation where he couldn't move. He was barely capable of moving on his own power by the end of that. I will talk about that here shortly after that, because I hate how Gus Bradley stopped being aggressive in that overtime. But I mean, it is what it is. At the end of the day, I mean, you had Anthony Richardson out there balling, even amidst, and remember that touchdown that he had where he messed up his ankle. Then that 2-point conversion had to move around in the pocket and was stumbling on his own foot because of the pain he was probably under, and still found a way to get it to Zach Moss for a 2-point conversion, which gave you a chance in the end. So it's like, again, casuals will look at the stat line and say, oh, it wasn't that great. You go back and rewatch that game, Anthony Richardson, it was the biggest reason why we were even back in that game to begin with.
Well, and here's the thing is, going back to your Gus Bradley comment, I'll use a mixed martial arts or boxing reference. When you have your opponent hurt and you crack him with a right hook and he's stumbling, you don't go and let him recover. Okay.
Yeah.
It's the same principle. It's different because you're talking about like lower extremity, which is way more serious when you're in a running sport like football. But Stafford was hobbling. Why wouldn't you kick that field goal? Why wouldn't you say this dude can't make his throws? Because it was his planting foot. It wasn't his back foot, his right foot. It was his left.
Mm-hmm.
So he couldn't put the force on those throws. Why not kick a field goal? Look, at the end of the day, though, the silver lining from even that, Derek, is that Steichen is wanting to go big. This is a dude who's not afraid to risk it all to go big.
Yes,
you didn't get that with Reich. If you did get Reich going on fourth down, I don't mean to throw all the shade on Frank Reich.
It's okay. We've been doing that all week, so it's all good.
He's struggling. He's struggling as a rookie quarterback head coach. You would get very predictable play calling. Steichen goes big on those fourth downs. So that's the silver lining. But at the end of the day, Derek, I think it could have cost them the win if they would have just trusted Matt Gay. He missed one of them, but I think he probably makes that one, honestly.
And you know what? This is just as much a trial run for Shane Steichen as it is for Anthony Richardson. I mean, at the end of the day, Steichen is learning what is good for him and what is bad for him. And I'm sure at the end of the year, when whatever the record the Colts are, he goes back and looks at this game and is like, man, what if I had kicked that field goal there instead? What could have potentially happened? You know, like, and Steichen seems like a smart enough dude. I think he will. I mean, again, at the end of the day, like you said, it is better to have tried and won it all than to have been conservative and not had a chance, especially when You got this young team that's trying, and through all the trial and run, you're figuring out what works. And it was very close. But we'll go ahead and hop into another section here. The rushing attack. Through the first half, it was all Anthony Richardson. Anthony Richardson had practically all of the rushing yards, pretty much had all of the yards when it came to the first half for the Indianapolis Colts. I think Zach Moss had like 6 carries for like 10 yards in the first half, which makes his second half so much better. He had 12 carries for 60 yards in the second half. So he ran for 5 yards a carry in the second half. The Colts were finally able to find a way to get Zach Moss running the football better. Richardson had his moments where, he was able to move the chains because of that. And that's something that, like you said, NFL defenses are going to have to take into account going forward. There wasn't much to talk about when it came to the rushing attack, but we can go ahead and hop into the biggest problem, which, again, I said before, was the offensive line. First half couldn't generate any movement up front to run the football. All game, Anthony Richardson felt like up until those like 2 drives those 3 drives where they scored touchdowns, Drake, other than that, it just felt like Richardson never had time. It felt like Richardson was always second guessing himself because every other time he was getting pressured. And whether it was Aaron Donald or if it was Emory Jones or if it was that Bryce Young kid coming off the edge, like there was so many opportunities where he was like, I can't stay in this pocket. I got to move because I don't have a chance to move anywhere because I don't have time to throw the football. If I don't get it out in less than 2.5 seconds, I'm getting hit. So I know that the Colts were down Bernhard Raimann, and I know they were down Ryan Kelly. Clearly, they were very, very, very missed in this game for the Indianapolis Colts. But, man, was it rough to, watch that offensive line today.
Well, and like for the past 2 games, the Houston game and the Baltimore game, Shane Steichen was in the pocket of DeMeco Ryans, and he was in the pocket of John Harbaugh. I mean, he really had them figured out. In this game, the guy that was almost this close, Derek, remember we were doing those episodes where we were talking about Raheem Morris potentially being the Colts head coach. This is a former head coaching candidate that was in the pocket of Shane Steichen today. I mean, Raheem Morris brought the pain in that first half.
Yeah.
And the thing is, Ernest Jones is the top, I think, because me and Andrew on Horseshoe Huddle had Tom Court from Rams Up on Fans First Sports Network. We had him on, and he talked over the top about Ernest Jones. Ernest Jones is the best run defender on the Rams defense. He is one of the most overlooked guys in the NFL. He had 10 tackles today, 4 by himself, a tackle for loss, and a sack. This dude was on fire in the first half. So they figured it out kind of in the second half because Steichen, I do stand by this, he's brilliant. So he is also open to adjusting because he wants to adjust the offense to the strength of his players and the game time type of developments. And he did that in the second half. But in the first half, it was all Raheem Morris. He owned the Colts. And like you said, Blake Freeland, hey, here's the thing. I did an article on this that Aaron Donald's a defensive tackle, Derek, but he lines up over the tackle more than any other spot on the defensive line. Raheem Morris moves this dude around.
Yeah.
So as soon as I heard that Bernhard Raimann was out and that Blake Freeland was coming in at left tackle, I said to myself, you will hear a healthy dosage of Aaron Donald over Blake Freeland. Yeah. And when Aaron Donald lined up over Freeland, overall Freeland didn't do too bad. But when Donald was over the top of him, it was a clear mismatch. And Raheem Morris feasted
every
on that.
Single time Blake Freeland lost that matchup. Every time. And I knew it would happen too. I'm surprised more people didn't realize Aaron Donald is good enough. He can line up anywhere. And he will line up.
He's a Hall of Famer. I mean, he's a Hall of Famer, man.
Yeah. So it was tough dealing with that all day. I mean, if Bernhard Raimann and Ryan Kelly were in there, I'm sure things probably could have looked a little bit different. than it
You
was.
would have at
But
least had more play call changes from Kelly
yeah,
because Kelly's like the general of the offensive line. So it was different without both Ryman and Kelly. So Donald feasted.
yeah, absolutely. Let's talk about the pass catchers real quick before we move to the defense. Drew Ogletree led the way, 3 catches, 48 yards, and a touchdown. Congratulations to Drew Ogletree, by the way. First touchdown of his NFL career. Really took over that, what was it, that second drive, that second touchdown drive that they had. He took over that drive, gave the Colts hope. Alec Pierce was the second leading receiver on the day. That 138-yard catch that he had that, pretty much, again, made that third drive possible. Mo Ali Cox, again, one catch, but it was the one that counted. That's a touchdown for him. So, the tight ends today, and Kylan Granson had 2 catches for 24 yards. Another one that really made that third drive possible. So, the tight ends really got involved today. 6 catches in total between the 3 of them for just over 100 yards and 2 touchdowns between the 2 of them. So the tight ends really got involved today. And we know how Shane Steichen likes to do that. But again, Drake, I'm furious at the wide receiver production we're still getting. Michael Pittman, only 1 catch on the day for 15 yards. Now, I will admit that was not his fault. At least 2 of the target, he had 5 targets in this game. At least 2 of them, one Richardson overthrew, and the other one was a clear miscall of a face mask in the red zone, in the end zone, actually, which would have put the Colts at the 1-yard line, which would have enabled them to get a touchdown on that drive, which would have put us in a much better position. But clearly, NFL refs do not know what the hell a face mask is. But anyway, we'll move on. And so Josh Downs had his 2 catches. I think they were both in the first half. I mean, again, Josh Downs gets involved in the first half, but they never use him in the second half, and I just don't understand it. And then Alec Pierce, again, he only got targeted twice. He got lucky with the fact that the 4th down drop that he had, or the 3rd down drop that he had, thankfully, Kylan Granson came through on the next play. But Alec Pierce, of course, made one of the biggest catches of the day. The one time they are able to go deep with him, he finally makes that 1 catch that they needed. Again, I'm happy, Drake, with the tight end usage, but it just seems like, again, the wide receivers, there just isn't much substance coming out of them right now.
Yeah, and the thing is, again, Michael Pittman Jr. in the first 3 games, he dominated. I think he had like 20, 25 catches or something. He was averaging about 8 a game.
Yeah.
And so the Rams came prepared to stop Michael Pittman, and they came prepared to pressure AR. And so you see Drew Ogletree, you see Kylan Granson, you see Mo Ali Cox with 6 out of 11 completions, and for over 100 out of the 200 passing yards that Anthony Richardson had. So, hey, props to the Colts tight end group. They stepped up where the wide receivers didn't. But then you start questioning, why are there only 4 wide receivers on the depth chart? I think Juwan Winfrey was a 5th at some point. But right now, you've basically got Michael Pittman Jr., you've got Alec Pierce, you've got Josh Downs, and then you have Isaiah McKenzie, who has struggled so far. So you question, why is there not a 5th dude in there? Because you've got 4 tight ends that are viable options on any given down. You have currently, without Jelani Woods, by the way, you still have Kylan Granson, Mo Ali Cox, Will Mallory, and Drew Ogletree. What happens when Woods comes back into play? Are you going to bring in another wide receiver to help AR? I think that you have to start asking, why wasn't Amari Rodgers a little more involved? They brought him in earlier in the offseason. So I don't know. I trusted the tight end to wide receiver ratio initially, Derek, but now I'm starting to question, because once plays break free, I'm not saying tight ends can't get open, but generally wide receivers have the agility and the suddenness to kind of help a quarterback like AR bail when he's out of the pocket.
Yeah, 100%. It's just, I don't know. I mean, I just don't know if I can't say that the Colts don't have a good wide receiver in Michael Pittman, because Michael Pittman had his first 3 games had 8 catches in all of them. So he was getting the production that was necessary, but it just seems strange that we just are struggling offensively to get any of these receivers involved. Alec Pierce has not caught more than 2 passes in any game this year.
Been rough.
Yeah, and Josh Downs, albeit there's been a couple games where he's had multitude of catches. We go back to last week where he had 8 catches against Baltimore. Yeah, it moved the chains, but it never really opened up the offense. And Michael Pittman has had that ability every once in a while, but like you said, they came into this game fully prepared to shut down Michael Pittman, because they said if they did that, then the Colts don't have another wide receiver that can go out and do anything. And sure enough, that was the truth. And so it has to be, I think, Drake, it's one of the biggest glaring issues of this team, that you need a guy that can take over a football game. You need a true number 1 guy that says, I can take over any football game I want to. It doesn't matter what defensive package you throw at me. I will be getting my 5, 6, 7 catches a game for 100+ yards and a touchdown or 2. You will not stop me. I just don't know if we have that right now.
Yeah, and I'll play devil's advocate here into a rumor. Even if you don't have that 5, 6, 7, 8 catches a game guy, if you have that guy that's a consistent threat, if you have that guy that's a consistent threat, that's a big-bodied receiver, they can get down the field and push defensive secondaries to stretch them, and you open up stuff underneath like a guy like Mike Evans, you might be able to put pressure with a guy like Michael Pittman on one side and Mike Evans on another. Look, I know 30 is a dead age for receivers, for fans. Mike Evans has done nothing but just be consistent since his day 1 in the NFL. I really think if Mike Evans is unhappy in Tampa, I think that the Colts should make a play for that, because Tampa's typically going to try to trade with somebody that might be in an interconference away from their immediate, contention to get to the playoffs. I'm going to be that guy that says, look, if you really feel like you can't get pressure on each side, all right, with Pierce and Pittman, Mike Evans is the answer. That's the kind of guy that, my God, if you have Michael Pittman Jr. on one side and Mike Evans on the other, Mike Evans can play past his 30s. I think that he might be an anomaly. He's been one of the most consistent guys in the NFL. You just lacked that against the Rams. You didn't have both sides pushing the defense down each side.
I mean, he's definitely one of them for sure. I mean,
there's multiple.
There could be a multitude of different guys that you could trade for or sign in free agency when it comes around, or heck, even when you draft one this year, because we know that there's 3 or 4 wide receivers in this draft class that are guaranteed first rounders, will be starters come week 1 in the NFL. I mean, it's a position that the Colts can't ignore anymore. Listen, I'm all for Chris Ballard going forward with this group and saying, hey, we're still going to try to build around these guys. That's fine. If you want to do that for another year or 2, that's fine. Just go and get a veteran that you can consistently rely upon. Like you said, Mike Evans. So what if you got to pay the guy $20 million for 2 years? So what? Go do it. Because then if you have Pittman developing, you want to give him a new contract, and you want to see if Josh Downs in the slot will benefit from that. Mike Evans opens up so much because he is dominant. He can catch anything and everything. Richardson will have that guy. Pittman will find himself open more. No one is going to double team Josh Downs in the middle, and that works exactly how it should be. And who knows if they keep Pierce? I don't know. But either way, that's a conversation that we'll have another day. But let's go ahead and hop into the defensive side of things. So Zaire Franklin, again, led the team in tackles. Go figure. 13 tackles. Juju Brents was tied for second with 9, which is really awesome to see. Julian Blackman with 9. Dio Adangbo with 7. Kenny Moore with 7. Uh, 2 sacks on the day. Dio Adangbo with 1.5, and Zaire Franklin with a half sack. It was the first game where Kwity Paye was incapable of getting a sack. And I think actually, this is the second fewest amount of sacks that the Indianapolis Colts have had all season since the first week against the Jacksonville Jaguars. I mean, I don't know what to tell you about this one, Drake. I mean, I don't know because I mean, obviously, the first drive we had him stopped. Then EJ Speed ruined it by extending the drive, and that's how they scored. Second drive, the refs hit Kenny Moore with the stupidest personal foul call I've ever seen in my life, and that should not have been a flag. And it extended the drive once again, put the Rams in Colts territory once again, and we couldn't stop it. And then the 2 next drives, the Colts actually stopped them on field goals both times. So, that wasn't too terrible. But, and, like I said, the Colts held the Rams to only 3 points in the second half. And then obviously the touchdown given up in overtime. But the problem was, Drake, is everything about the defense was bad in this game. You gave up 103 yards to Kyron Williams. You gave up 47 yards to Ronnie Rivers. So the 34 carries for 153 yards, you were averaging almost 4.5 yards a carry if you were the Rams. It just, the Colts could just not stop them no matter what they tried. Although I will say, NFL refs, there was probably about 6 block in the back calls that I swear I see every time they ran a counter, but y'all won't call it. So I'm just saying that the NFL needs to launch an investigation into that officiating crew because that was terrible. But then, of course, when you look at the receiving, I mean, Nakoya, that dude might be the offensive rookie of the year right now. I mean, it might quite possibly could be. I mean, he has 52 receptions on the year and has, I think now like 400, 500 yards on the year, and only got his first touchdown against the Indianapolis Colts. But I mean, again, it reminds me a lot, Drake, of the Jacksonville game. Outside of Nakoya and Higbee, nobody else was really doing anything of noteworthy against the Indianapolis Colts, but we just couldn't stop them. And it just felt like no matter what happened in this game, the Colts just had no answer.
Yeah, and the thing is, through the first half, the defensive pass rush was garbage against Matt Stafford. And the thing is, when you have, like, I know a lot of people were like, "Oh, Stafford, he threw 2 touchdowns, 4 interceptions through his first 3 games, and he can't run, like the modern 2023 NFL quarterback." But here's the thing: I even said this on me and Andrew's show. I said, if he has time, Stafford's not Matt Ryan. Okay, he's not Ben Roethlisberger in his last year. Stafford can still ball, and he's doing it with Tutu Atwell, a name that no one knew, and he's doing it with Puka Nacua, a name that no one gave a dang about. And this dude's out there freaking balling with Matt Stafford. All I have to say is wait till he gets Cooper Kupp back. And he's going to have Tutu Atwell, and he's going to have Puka Nacua and Tyler Higbee and Kyron Williams. Stafford thrives when he has time. He's a pocket passer. He's the old school guy. And the thing is, when the Colts got him running, they were able to contain him. When he was able to sit back there and pick him apart, he diced him up like a freaking chef's knife. And he did that in the first half mostly. And the thing is, it was their inevitable downfall. I mean, Dallas Flowers actually had some pretty good pass breakups and plays, so did Kenny Moore. But the rest of the safeties, I mean, they got really exposed by Tyler Higbee and Puka Nacua, who has shown that without Cooper Kupp, he can be a star. So I think that it really comes down, Derek, at the end of the day, to the pass rush. They had been so good in those first 3 games. They'd put so much pressure on Lawrence and Stroud and Jackson to force miscues and bad throws. They didn't do that against Stafford. You could tell Sean McVay was prepared for that defensive pass rush.
I don't understand is you and I kind of alluded to it at the very beginning. I mean, we saw in the second half, Matt Stafford could barely walk. I mean, the dude he couldn't run away from someone even if he tried, Drake. Like, you knew it. He was there. He had to be confined to the pocket. He couldn't run. It was impossible for Matt Stafford to get away from anyone that had him in his grasp. But yet, somehow, some way, Gus Bradley sits there and says, "Oh, well, that's fine. We're just not gonna rush him anymore." I mean, it's so weird because I know Matt Stafford's never a scrambler, but like, especially for a guy that is incapable of escaping, you don't seclude him to the spot where he thrives in the most. You run it down his neck. Like, I was preaching at the end of that game. Send 6, man coverage, tight coverage. And if you lose because your defense couldn't get to the quarterback within 3 seconds every single time, then yes, you deserve to lose. But yet you just let Matt Stafford sit in the pocket, hobbled, but still allowed him to sit in the pocket when you knew your defensive line was not getting pressure. I just don't, I know I know it's dumb to suggest that you should just blitz outright the whole time, but very rarely do you see a quarterback so obviously hobbled in that game. I mean, he was holding his hip the whole time. He couldn't even do anything with his other hip. And yet somehow Gus Bradley's decision in response to that is, no, I'm just not going to blitz him. I just don't understand Gus Bradley's inability to sit there and say, we're not getting pressure up front. We're just not going to continue to blitz. I don't understand it.
Well, and that's actually Matt Stafford's worst part of his game is dealing with pressure up the middle. And the Colts too. Look, Kwity Paye is having himself a year. So is Samson Ebukam, and Dayu Dangbo in this game specifically really had his coming out party. So that shows the Colts have depth with their defensive ends. Taven Bryan had 2 sacks going into this game from the defensive tackle position. The Colts have depth. But you really thought to yourself, look, we just got to get to Matt Stafford. The thing about Matt Stafford is, though, he's immobile. And the thing about the Colts defense is that they allowed Stafford to have so much time that he could just sit back there and do what he does best, and that's pocket passing. So I agree 100% with you. Look, when you have a wounded animal, and I'm just going to go outright and say this, when you have a wounded animal, you go after the kill. In the NFL, if you have a pocket passer that has his plant leg, his left leg, because Stafford's the only left-handed thrower in the NFL right now is Tua Tagovailoa from the Dolphins.
Yeah.
Stafford is a right-handed guy. His plant leg, his left leg was hurt. So his throws are not going to be as powerful. So he's not going to throw that ball out quick and hit it on target. As soon as, like you said, he started hobbling around, that's when you bring the pain. And the Colts had one of the best defensive pass rushes going into this game. Give props to the Rams. They held it well. They kept that pocket passer like Stafford, who's 35, 36 years old, looking pretty good. I mean, he only took 2 sacks for 16 yards, 27 for 40 for 319, a touchdown and a pick. So I'd say that the offensive line actually responded pretty well. But I'm a little sad that I didn't see more pressure on Matt Stafford and a little more, like you said, of an aggressive mentality to take advantage of the fact that he was hobbling. He was throwing short all day.
I couldn't understand it. And it will forever be the downfall because the problem is Drake, I was watching it, and I mean, even at the end of this game, he was 27 of 40. So completed high 60s when it came to the passes. I mean, I don't know if there's many other guys in the NFL that pick apart a zone defense better than Matt Stafford. And also, our form of zone defense the way Matt Stafford does. Matt Stafford kills the Colts every single time he plays us. It's the same thing with Derek Carr, which makes me concerned when we play the Saints late in October. I have a strong suspicion that the Colts are going to lose that game because Gus Bradley is stuck in his own way and he doesn't like to defer away from what he does. And it just angers me because you had no answer for Matt Stafford in this game. Your front seven couldn't generate pressure. You didn't bring the blitz, and yet still you thought to yourself that your zone defense was the best way to go forward in this game when Matt Stafford is picking you apart. He's picking you apart. And I know that obviously the defense is not void of this issue. Shaq Leonard has not been the same as what he once was, and he was out for a good chunk of this game because I don't know if they just thought he wasn't if he just wasn't playing well or if there was there was like an injury problem or what. But then you had a couple other guys having issues, and of course the players have to step up too because, like we said, this offensive line was banged up. Their left tackle was missing. And so be it. Samson Mbukum was getting held all game against that left tackle. They never called it. But at the end of the day, I mean, you as a defensive coordinator need to stop being so stubborn in your ways that your ways are what is ruining this game because you know that this quarterback is not getting pressured. And due to the fact that your D-line's not getting pressure and you're not bringing blitzes and your way of playing defense is allowing that quarterback to just pick you apart. But yet you don't make the changes. I don't know what else there is to do here. Obviously in the second half, the defense did a little bit better job of slowing down the run and were able to get a hold of Matt Stafford a little bit more. I think just due to the fact that Matt Stafford was so hobbled by the end of the game, like you said, that plant foot was so bad. A lot of his throws, especially that interception to Kenny Moore, he threw that ball way behind Tutu Atwell, which is very uncharacteristic. Good job by Kenny to close in on it, but I mean, that was more Matt Stafford being the problem in the second half than your defense. So I mean, that infuriates me that we just let him pick us apart until we just ultimately couldn't stop him anymore.
Yeah, and I think that Kyron Williams had 25 carries for 103 for 2 scores on the day. Ronnie Rivers, the backup, had 9 carries for 47 yards. So together they had 34 carries for 150 yards. I mean, that really probably helped a little bit with that. But like you said, in today's NFL, you don't have many remaining pocket passers. And Matt Stafford is one of those guys. So, like your Derek Carrs, like your Matt Staffords, the Colts run more of a zone defense. And when you have a pocket passer who zips the ball in, he's got good arm strength, short arm strength, and he can hit those balls accurate. Zone defense is a quarterback's best friend if you don't get pressured. And that's where we were talking about the defensive front. They have to provide more of that upfront pressure between Stewart, between Buckner. But like you said, also the defensive backs and the linebackers, they got to cover better against pocket passers because Stafford really picked them apart. And when you're talking about zone coverage, Derek, you just got to find that soft spot. So if you have a linebacker and a corner right there in zone, you have like the corner and the linebacker here, you have that soft spot right here in the middle. You have to sit there. You have to make sure that that's open. And if you have even a couple seconds, you can get that open. So I think that the Colts pass rush got exposed a little bit by the blocking scheme of the Rams. They were ready for it a little bit more than I think the Colts were prepared for.
They were moving
especially
guys. I mean,
early on in the game.
yeah, and especially when they were trying to run the football. I mean, they were moving the guards, the tackles, the center. They were moving everybody. And it was weird because, like, at times you thought that we had him in the backfield, and then all of a sudden that guard comes pulling, and then just Kyron just gets that 7-8 yard carry, and it was rough today.
Yeah, and between both dealing with the more than expected efficient blocking of the Rams and Kyron Williams, it was a little bit too much for the Colts to adjust to early on. But again, they're such a young team. They're even young defensively. Their secondary is so young. Their linebackers, I mean, two of them consist of guys that are under the age of like 28, 27 years of age, like Zaire and EJ Speed, who EJ Speed had maybe one of the more boneheaded plays of the season. But
Yeah.
when you account for the entire game to come back from 23 down, again, Colts fans, when you're watching this from Bring the Juice, remember that there's reason to be optimistic. They fought. They didn't give up. They didn't pack it in. 23 down. They fought back at home and they dang near won the game. If they don't let that up in overtime to Puka Nakua, they win the game. So give them a little bit of credit, but you just can't get started so slow against a veteran play caller like Sean McVay and a veteran quarterback like Matt Stafford.
I'll just say this, bro. I love that Anthony Richardson is my quarterback now. But again, just imagine once again, this was a Matt Stafford who back in 2021 offseason, the Colts were linked to the entire way.
This close, man.
2 years ago.
This
And
close.
Ballard let it slip through his fingers. And in that time, not only has Stafford won a Super Bowl, but he's beaten you twice since then. So I mean, it's again just goes to show you. I mean, the Colts,
It's a little bit of a
really
sting, you
messed
know what I
up big
mean?
time, letting Stafford slip and allowing Wentz to get here. That was a really bad slip up, bro. Really bad. And look, obviously we have our quarterback now, which is fine. We all love that. But I mean, and especially since we know what we're about to get with this upcoming QB draft class. I mean, even if you didn't want to pay Stafford going forward after this, I mean, you still could have went and got a quarterback this year. But it still reminds me once again like how close the Colts were to having Stafford and where we might be if. But then again, if Stafford was the QB for those years, I mean, do we have a situation where Frank Reich is still in Indianapolis right now? I mean, that could have had a very big domino effect.
Yeah, and look, at the end of the day, Matt Stafford was this close to being to Indianapolis. In fact, I think they were the front runner until the Rams just kind of like undercut the entire league and they took
Yeah.
Stafford out from under everybody's nose. But look, at the end of the day, Anthony Richardson is actually I had his age pulled up. I was wrong. He's 21 until he turns 22 in May of 2024. This dude is so freaking young. Colts fans,
Yeah.
please, three things with Richardson: be excited, be supportive, and be patient. That last one's the biggest thing because I even posted this out on X when they were down 23 to nothing. I said Richardson's visibly upset. This was bound to happen. He was at some point going to hit that wall, that brick wall that bricks him against the side of his head. He did against the Rams, and he dang near won the game. Still, okay, so give this guy time. He's with a diverse play caller like Shane Steichen. You just have to be patient. If they get 7, 8 wins, celebrate. If they get more, that's overshooting expectations. So just give these guys time, especially Anthony Richardson. He's so inexperienced. He just needs time.
Yep. Absolutely correct. Just it's gonna be another situation where I mean the Colts. I think you and I both can sit here in agreement. Yes, we lost this one. It's another bad one at home, but I think you and I both can agree that with Richardson and Steichen, we have already seen enough through 4 games that tells you if things go on the current trajectory, the Colts are in good hands with this guy at quarterback and this guy at the helm of head coach. Because this team is aggressive. This team has its fight back. This team has something to work for. And that's that's what Colts fans have been desperately looking for the past 3 years, has just been the guy that can tell people that we have some hope. And that's where we're at right now. And you know what? I mean, even through 4 weeks, I mean, how many Colts fans would have said that we would be 2-2, almost this close to being almost undefeated? I mean, there was and Richardson playing the way that he is right now. I mean, I don't think I would have. I don't think I would have. Which, again, we just coming off the loss. That sucks to say that, but right now, I mean, I'm happy with the direction that the Colts are heading, and I just hope they continue to get better.
Well, and at the end of the day, Derek, it really depends on how you viewed the season. Realistic expectations would have been 5, 6, 7, 8 wins, and just it's all about Anthony Richardson's development and this super duper young team, which is third youngest in the NFL by average. I think they're 25 by average, and you're talking about 53 players. It's super young. You only have a couple guys that are 30, and that's the oldest age. So it really depends on how you had the expectations. If you were, expecting a Super Bowl, well, that's on you. But if you were expecting a team to come off of 4 freaking wins, 12 losses, and a tie against the Texans, maybe you are a little happier. Okay. Richardson wasn't really projected to do this well at this point of the season. He's shown command over the offense, composure, ability to come back from a deficit. This is a dude who was throwing 53, 54% in NCAA, and he was coming into this game at 63%. He dipped a little bit for this one, but again, time, patience, let Steichen and Richardson connect as a quarterback and head coach duo. You just have to let this develop. And you know what? They're playing, in my humble opinion, above expectations so far.
I'll just say it. Anthony Richardson still completing 57% of his passes.
I'll take it.
500 yards in 3 games and 3 touchdowns to 1 interception with a QB rating of an 85.5. It's not bad. It's not bad. It's going to get better. And that doesn't even include the rushing stats. I mean, it's crazy because he's on pace to have more rushing touchdowns than he will passing touchdowns by the end of the year. I don't know if that's going to stand that way, but he's on pace to get 20 and 20 this year, which, I mean, that would be pretty daggone good for a rookie quarterback that some people said was not ready for the NFL. So, not too bad.
No, and hey, at the end of the day, it's all about his development as a pocket passer, just as a passer overall, his mechanics, his fundamentals. The running is there. Colts fan, just please be patient with Anthony Richardson. It's going to take time, and I think that he has overshot expectations so far. You were down 23-0 at halftime. He almost got this team back to a win, minus a couple decisions from Shane Steichen and a missed field goal. Me and Derek might be talking about a 3-1 record right here.
Yep, absolutely. But hey, listen, shout out to my guy Drake for coming on here, man. We've been trying to get him back on the pod for about a month now. Just seems like every opportunity that I try to get him on, he's always busy. He's a busy man. I understand completely, but it's always good to have him on. Really needed his help with having a different perspective on this game. And then it's always good to talk with somebody about the different ways this game went down. But let me know your thoughts, guys, on this game. Again, it's a rough one. It's a tough one to swallow, but at the end of the day, this is a young team. Take it with a grain of salt. We get a chance to go to Tennessee, take the win against the Tennessee Titans. I'm not entirely sure, Drake, but if I'm not mistaken, I think there's a 3-way tie for first place right now in the AFC South. And I think it might be all. I'm about to look that up real quick. Hold on, I'm going to look this up because I think all of these teams are 2-2. Did the Jaguars beat anyone in the division?
So they beat the Colts week 1. They lost to the Texans.
And what about the Titans? Who did the Titans lose to? Oh, here, hold on. So
they just defeated the Bengals.
No, they haven't played the Colts they haven't played anyone in the AFC South yet. So there is a 3-way tie for first place right now between the Colts, the Jags, and the Texans because the Texans just won today. They beat the Jags, and the Jags obviously beat us, and we beat the Texans. So there's a three-way tie. The only reason the Titans are dead last, even though the same record, is because they haven't beaten an AFC South opponent yet. So that'd be a huge, huge thing for the Colts next week. If the Colts end up winning next week, then we will be back to being number one in the division because we will have the divisional record. So just food for thought, everyone. But again, let me know your thoughts on this, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. And as always, go Colts.